You're listening to the Holistic Health Front podcast.
Whether you've already taken steps towards a healthier life,
or you're just starting to explore this path,
this podcast aims to help all of us live longer and more energized lives,
so we can all do the things we want and be the person we know we can be.
We bring on functional health experts, parents, professionals, and everyday people who want to make positive changes in their lives.
And we create powerful conversations about how to feel good in a fun, easy, and understandable way,
so you can live the most fulfilling life possible.
Enjoy today's discussion and let us hear your thoughts in our Powerful People Facebook group.
The information presented in this podcast is not meant to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent, or mitigate any disease.
If you have any questions about your health or the health of a loved one, please consult your healthcare practitioner.
Now let's begin.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Holistic Health Front podcast. We are so excited that you're joining us tonight. I'm Stephanie Cook, and I'm here with Courtney. Hi, Courtney. How's it going in the islands today?
Hi, Stephanie. It's going really well. It's June. Things are starting to warm up, and the island is starting to slow down just a little bit, but not completely. So,
yeah, talking about slowing down. Yeah. Well, talking about slowing down, that's kind of one of our topics tonight. We're actually I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time, and I'm super excited that Courtney's here with me because she and I are in the middle of this phase in our life. And so tonight, our topic is going to be discussing perimenopause and menopause. And it's something that I think really needs to be brought out of the shadows and into our everyday conversations. And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about menopause. We're going to talk about resources for people that have questions about menopause. We're going to share our own personal experiences about perimenopause, those years leading up to menopause, and menopause itself, and just women's health in general. And so there's been a lot of talk in the last few years about women's health, and it's not been given the same resources, whether it's, money that they use for research or whether it's time spent in your medical schools teaching about women's health. There's definitely a gap when it comes to information and education about women's health. In this particular time in our life, perimenopause and menopause seems to have one of the biggest gaps. And so even in my research that I've done, even our OBGYNs that, focus on women's health will tell you that the information that they got about perimenopause and menopause, is oftentimes only 1 to 2 hours of education about this incredible time in a woman's life out of 8 years of medical school and medical training. And so that's been really interesting to me in the research that I've been doing is how little time, attention, energy, finances, and focus has been given to this really important and pivotal part in our life. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, Courtney and I are going to talk a little bit about society and how it views that. And we're just going to kind of bring this conversation into the forefront. So Courtney, thank you for joining me tonight to have this conversation about this pivotal time in our lives. And I guess we'll just get started by jumping in. We really didn't have any specific. How about Courtney? How about I just share a little bit about where I am in my personal life, and then we'll move into where you are in your personal life, because we kind of share this whole place where we are right now. So I am 55 years old, and I'm considered post-menopausal. That means that I have been 12 months or longer since I had my last menstrual cycle. And just the word itself is hard to say. I'm 55 years old and I'm post-menopausal. I mean, there's this weight that's carried with that word, right? I mean, it conjures up the idea of an elderly, grandmotherly woman that's really thick, that's oftentimes very thick around the middle and, shoulders are bent over. And that's not who I am. But that's who I am. So I just want to let you know this is where I am. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about this is that I've been a health and wellness coach for almost 20 years. I have been studying about wellness, well-being, diet, exercise, supplementation, esoteric things to bring into your life, balancing, your spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And nothing has sideswiped me more or literally stopped me in my tracks the way this perimenopause and menopause journey did. And one of the things that I'm super passionate about is that if somebody like me, who has been in the health and wellness industry for almost 2 decades, didn't know what the hell was going on in my body and what the hell were all these symptoms and the confusion around all of it, how on God's green earth are other people navigating this? I had a huge closet of resources. I could go to websites and I could go to books and I could go to doctors, and the list just went on and on and on. But I was completely sideswiped. This perimenopause journey that eventually leads to menopause. So for clarification for our audience, perimenopause is defined as the 7 to 10 years before a woman stops their cycle, before menopause. Menopause is defined as, when you no longer have a cycle. And so the average age for menopause in the United States is the ages of 51 to 52. That's the average age of menopause for women in the United States. Actually, that's pretty common worldwide. There's definitely countries that are a little bit different than ours, but that's a pretty good average age. But it's absolutely normal for a woman to go through menopause, to stop her cycle, between the ages of 45 and 55. So if we're using this, perimenopause can be 7 to 10 years before your last cycle. Then if it's absolutely normal for a woman to go through menopause between the ages of 45 and 55, if we back that up, that means that we could start our perimenopause, which is transition into menopause, at the age of 35. And that's why I want to have this conversation. Because at the age of 35, I sure as hell was not thinking about menopause. I had just had a baby. I literally had just had a baby. I was breastfeeding at the age of 35. So the last thing that I was thinking about was that I was going into perimenopause. And so I really want to have this conversation tonight to talk about what that is, the journey leading up to menopause, some of the stigma surrounding it, and some of the resources that we have for that. So that was a little bit about where I am and what I want to talk about tonight. But I want Courtney to come online because she's in a little bit different part of her journey. And I want Courtney just to share with me where you think you might be in your journey.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie. I'm definitely in perimenopause, for sure. And I'm feeling the emotional ramifications. I'm feeling the physical ramifications of a shortened time between cycles. And then the cycles themselves are changing. I emotionally flare up when I don't expect to. And then I think what is going on? What did I just say? Wow. So this past couple of weeks, my level-headed spiritualness has been tested. And it's been an interesting lesson as I move through this. But those are the things that I'm noticing mostly, the emotional roller coaster that's happening. And then just the shortened days between periods. Cause I'm thinking, really, I just started my period less than 3 weeks ago. And here we go again.
Yeah.
It is how it is. I was on birth control in my mid-30s for, I don't know, maybe 5 or so years probably. But I haven't been on it since then because I just wanted to give my body the most natural experience it could have. And birth control was not something natural for me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought up emotional symptoms. And that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight because, the flagship symptom that you're moving into menopause, well, there's 2. Number 1, your period cycles change. We as women kind of know that. And 2, hot flashes, right? That's kind of the flagship symptom. of menopause, perimenopause.
This episode is brought to you by oxygen and carbon dioxide. Breathe deep, breathe slow. Are you tired of nagging headaches, body pains, and feeling like you've been steamrolled by 2 p.m.?
Ugh.
Want to feel more alive with a clearer mind, voice, and skin?
Yep.
And not to mention getting rid of that pesky BO when the deodorant starts to wear off?
Ew.
Introducing to you today, water. Did you know that 75% of American adults are chronically dehydrated? And did you know that majority of people who are dehydrated think that they actually are hydrated? That means most people are not drinking enough water. But if they did, and they realized how much of a massive difference it makes in how they feel to be hydrated, they would realize that water can change their life. So drink more water. Aim for 96 fluid ounces per day minimum for adults. Side effects include peeing more often the first couple of weeks, but don't worry, it will slow down soon. I know I should really drink less caffeine. I just wish there was some way of getting energy in the morning without a coffee. The sun! Wait a minute. I feel good. Especially when I close my eyes and stare at the sun through my eyelids. Wow, this is great. I think I'm ready to crush this day now. Thanks, sun. The Sun. Use it for free with care. Hey y'all, hope you've enjoyed these goofy little commercials. The information is all accurate and valid, so please use the tips we shared. Even though we're having fun and being silly recording them, they're still 100% meant to support you and entertain you. We'll be getting back to the show in just a minute, but first, I want to really encourage you to join our free community on Facebook. It's called the Powerful People Community, and it's a place where you can interact with other listeners of the show, including me, our other coaches and co-hosts and everybody. And it's a place where you can ask questions publicly or anonymously. You can request episode topics, you can share your story, and celebrate with a group of really amazing people who will also be celebrating you. So we really hope to see you in the community. We think we're building something really special because we believe when you bring together a group of powerful people, there's just so many great things we can do in this world, more than we could do on our own. So we're building a special community and we hope to talk to you there soon. Now, let's get back to the show.
I have a list here, and I'm actually going to read it. I don't know if you guys can see this. This list is actually very long, but I'm going to read it because this is the thing that kind of blew my mind. When I was going through all of my stuff, I had no idea I was in perimenopause. I had no idea that what I was going through was normal, nor did I know how to address it because all the tricks of the trade, being a health coach all these years, none of them worked. And I'm like, wow, how these always work. I've been in health and wellness a long time. All these little tricks, they always work. None of them did. I was completely sideswiped and it took me down. It took me down in the worst possible way. I was non-functioning for a while. My family will tell you I literally checked out. I was MIA for a while. And the problem was I didn't know what was going on with myself and I didn't know how to address those issues. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm reading from a book. I have several resources that I'm going to talk about tonight. And one of them is, this book is called The New Menopause. It's by Dr. Mary Claire Haver. She is an OBGYN. She's a certified OBGYN. She is a certified culinary medicine specialist. She's a certified menopause specialist, and she's written this book. And I absolutely find this mind-blowing. In the first chapter of the book, she talks about the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. And it's a lot more than just hot flashes. So I'm going to read these to you because this kind of blew me away. Here we go. So you're between the ages of 35 and 55, and you're trucking along, and pay attention, because if this is something that's going on with you, I want you to be able to have a real conversation around this, with your friends, with your family, with your physicians, because it really is something that affects us. So number one, acid reflux or GERD. Acid reflux, really? Okay. Acne, alcohol intolerances, anxiety. I'm going to stop on anxiety because that was one of the things that blew me away. I was having anxiety that was literally wrecking my body. I would get up in the morning, walk into the kitchen, and I would start trembling. And the only thing going on in my life was that I was going to fix myself a cup of tea. There was no reason for my body to be in a state of crisis, but it felt like a crisis. And I couldn't figure out why. My breathing would change. I was like, what is going on with me? Anxiety is for people that have a stressful situation, right? Anxiety is for people that don't have support, right? Anxiety is for people that, are in trouble. And none of that was going on in my life. I was walking to the kitchen to fix a cup of tea, and I would be struck with these panic attacks and this anxiety. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on with me? It totally shocked me. So anyway, anxiety, I'm going to keep reading. Joint pain. That's another thing that caught me off guard. I have been doing and practicing yoga my whole adult life. Love yoga. Suddenly every yoga, this is somebody who's doing regular daily exercise, somebody who has been practicing yoga on a regular daily basis, not just for years, but for decades. And all of a sudden my body ached everywhere. I had difficulty getting into, yoga positions, had difficulty getting off the couch, had difficulty sitting down on the couch. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 45 years old. What is going on with me? Craziness. I'm going to keep going. Arthritis, asthma, autoimmune disease, bloating, body composition change, belly fat, body odor, brain fog. This one was huge for me. Having trouble finishing sentences, having problems remembering appointments, forgetting to pick my kids up from school. What the hell? How do you forget to pick your kids up from school? Brain fog. Courtney, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm definitely experiencing that. It's just like, wait, what was I just talking about? Or what did I walk over here for? Or what was I going to text this person about? And it's just, and I'm kind of scattered. I am kind of scattered about things. And it's like, whoa, it's a trip.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And especially when you pride yourself as being somebody who's organized and, I've got my shit together, and suddenly my shit is not together. So yes, brain fog. Courtney, thanks for sharing. And I'm going to want you to weigh in. Breast tenderness or breast soreness, brittle nails, burning sensation of the mouth or tongue, chronic fatigue. That one was big for me. I was struggling to get out of bed. It didn't matter how many hours of sleep I had at night. Whew, a lot of difficulty with fatigue. Crawling skin sensations, decreased desire for sex, dental problems, depression, difficulty concentrating, dizzy spells, dry or itchy eyes, dry mouth, dry skin, eczema, electric shock sensations anywhere in your body, fatigue, fibromyalgia, frozen shoulder. I'm going to talk about this one for a minute because it showed up big time in my yoga practices. I used to always be able to put my hands above my head and put my hands behind my back, and suddenly I can't reach behind my back. I'm like, aren't people that practice yoga on a day-to-day basis supposed to be limber enough to reach their hands behind their back? No, could not. I couldn't even put my hands above my head. You know how you lay back on your pillow and you put your hands behind your head? Could not put my hands behind my head while laying on the bed. Frozen shoulder. Shocking to me. By the way, I didn't know this was a symptom. Frozen shoulder, urinary infections, headaches, heart palpitations, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, hot flashes, incontinence, insulin resistance, irritable bowel syndrome, irritability, itchy ears, itchy skin, kidney stones, memory issues, menstrual cycle changes, that one we pretty much all know about, mental health disorders, migraines, mood changes, muscle aches and pains, night sweats, non-alcohol fatty liver disease, osteoporosis, pain with intercourse, muscle loss, sleep apnea, sleep disturbances, thinning hair, thinning skin, tingling of the extremities, tinnitus, ringing of the ears, TMJ, unwanted hair growth, whiskers, urinary tract infections again, vaginal dryness, vertigo, weight gain, and wrinkles. Thank you for letting me read that long list. I wanted to talk about that because I know it took up a long time with the podcast, but I was blown away when I first started studying perimenopause and menopause that all of this stuff that I couldn't figure out was related to this change in our hormones. I mean, I was like, seriously, I eat really, really healthy. Why am I having bloating? What is going on? I exercise daily. Why can't I sleep at night? So, Courtney, I want you to weigh in. Did any of those surprise you?
Oh, the sleeping stuff, for sure. Although lately I've been sleeping really well and I'm so grateful. But, it ebbs and flows. Alcohol intolerance. I don't drink that much. And now if I do have an opportunity to have a drink, I think, do I want to have a drink or do I want to sleep well tonight?
Yes.
Because it does affect my sleep, but then sometimes it doesn't. So the intolerance thing is up and down, but it makes me question. I'm not a big drinker anyway. Maybe I'll have something once a month, or on a special occasion I'll imbibe in that unfortunate poison, but it's fun at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So I definitely get that. And something I've been noticing for the past couple of months is like right around the time that I ovulate or I am supposed to ovulate, I get bloated and constipated.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's a lot of fun. Thank goodness for Smooth Move tea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's funny because you don't really realize. So I want to talk about your fluctuations because mine were the same way. I was fine some days. And there are some weeks, and then there's other times where I wasn't fine. And you kind of feel like you're losing your mind, right? And the other thing that the reason I wanted to list all these symptoms is because if I have a friend and we're going out to dinner together and I'm talking about, I can't lift my shoulders are frozen and I can't lift my hands above my head, or I'm having heart palpitations. And my friend, who's also going through perimenopause, is not having any of that. She might be having, maybe some acid reflux or maybe struggle with constipation. And we can't relate to each other, right? Because my stuff isn't anything like her stuff. So I'm not normal, right? So what's wrong with me? No, you know what I'm saying? Like we lack this ability to connect because the symptoms are so vast and so varied that everybody goes through this transition differently. And so we're reaching out to our friends and saying, what's really bothering me is I'm struggling with low sex drive. And then you have another friend that's like, oh, hell no. Ever since I've gotten to this stage in my life, I can't get enough sex. And you're like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And the reason for that, so let's talk about this. Perimenopause is that time when your estrogen and progesterone slowly start to decline. But it's not one perfect little smooth slide all the way down. It literally can vary from day to day. And it doesn't follow the normal cycles that we did when we were, in our younger years. And so that's why, Courtney, sometimes you said you feel fine. And sometimes you can have an alcoholic beverage. You're totally fine. And sometimes it affects your sleep. And it's because those estrogen and progesterone levels, specifically estrogen does a massive decline, but progesterone's in there too. They vary from day to day, month to month, and year to year. And you guys, this can go on for 7 to 10 years. So we go to our practitioners and we say, I don't know what's going on with me, but I literally, the doctor that I'm reading, Dr. Mary Claire, she described this as the zone of chaos. Can you relate to that, Courtney?
Relate to that 100%.
Yes.
Wow, it is the zone of chaos. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. She knows.
Right. Well, and the questioning in your mind, right? So what am I doing wrong? So a lot of it has to do with our heritage, and one of the things I want to talk a little bit about that is that our generation of parents did not talk about menopause. We did not talk about girl stuff. We did not talk about tampons and condoms and, anything like that. I would go over to my girlfriend's house and her mom would say, honey, I'm heading to the store. Do you need any unmentionables? And that was the word she would use. And she was asking one of my close friends, do you need tampons? Do you need pads? But we called them unmentionables. And the reason I bring this up is that there have been generations and generations where we've not talked about these symptoms. And so now our generation, Courtney, you, me, we're arriving here without anybody ever sharing with us what they were going through. Mood swings, depression, anxiety, irritability, low sex drive. I want to kill my husband. I've been happily married for 30 years, but today is the day we're ending it all because I can't take it any longer. What is wrong with me? He seems to be the same nice man that I've known for the last 3 decades, but today I can't take it. I have to walk away. And we go through this crazy zone of chaos, and it can last for 7 to 10 years. So I really wanted to bring that up. And Courtney, did your parents, did your aunts, did anybody in your life talk about perimenopause or menopause? Did they tell you, was there an open conversation in your family about it?
Not really, but I remember asking my mother, when she had menopause and did she have any symptoms? And she told me, and she said she had no symptoms. But I remember being younger and listening to some of the matriarchs in my family, that are my mom and her second cousins, all complaining that, man, after menopause, my breasts just got so big. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want that for myself.
Right.
And it's true. I look at them and I'm like, man, I want to stay with my nice, small, manageable size.
Right.
I'm happy with that. And I'm going to do all that I can to do that with diet and exercise. But, I am at the mercy of what's going on with my hormones. I think there are ways to combat it. And maybe we'll bring up fasting. Dr. Mindy Pelz talks a lot about fasting to get through menopause. And I really like her words and what she talks about and her point of view about that.
Absolutely.
Stuff. I think there are ways, we just need to fine tune it because there hasn't been enough time spent fine tuning. So we are on the frontier of this. We women entering the perimenopause and menopausal stages right now. So it's, in a way, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. One of the things that I think is interesting is that our standard American diet has changed a lot in the last 30 years, 40 years. And, we have a lot of processed foods. We have a lot of convenient foods. We have both men and women that are working, not just 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week. So we're doing what we can to, eat on the go, and we're feeding our family on the go. And this has had a direct effect on our bodies. And one of the things that you said is that I'd like to keep the shape that I currently have. So why is it when we get into menopause? Oh, that's the other thing I didn't share with you. I have gained 35 pounds. I have gained 35 pounds. I used to weigh 145 and I weigh 180 right now. And full transparency, and I want to say that out loud because there's so much freaking shame around it, because I'm a health coach and I exercise daily and I eat all the right foods and blah, blah, blah. What is going on with me? And so I want to bring that up because I didn't realize what I didn't realize. And so one of the things that I've learned, you mentioned Dr. Mindy Pelz. I'm going to hold up her book. It's called The Menopause Reset. It's by Dr. Mindy Pelz, Pelz. She is amazing. The other book I just held up was The New Menopause by Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Haver. And another book that I'm super excited about that I haven't gotten yet, but I've listened to her podcast and I've read some excerpts. And it's called The Menopause Brain. Super great information about what occurs during our perimenopause and menopause stage and what affects our brains and what we can do to feed it the right thing and what we should, try not to do. But that's The Menopause Brain, and that's by Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and that's spelled Mosconi. And we'll make sure that we put the names of these books and the links to their websites, in our information below the show. But one of the things that I thought was super interesting is that your body, when stress is something that raises the body's cortisol levels, and it also taps your adrenal glands. And it's something that nobody was ever told me about. Nobody ever said, Steph, the worst time to stress your body is during perimenopause and menopause. Because during perimenopause, I was raising kids and I was also taking care of elderly, sick parents. And my stress was through the roof. Dr. Mindy Pelz says in her book, The Menopause Reset, when cortisol, which is the stress hormone, goes high, then your progesterone goes bye-bye. And I was like, oh my gosh, progesterone is this calming hormone. It's the hormone that helps us, it smooths things out. It's also a hormone that helps regulate the other hormones. And when your stress goes really high with cortisol, your progesterone goes bye-bye. And then that leaves estrogen, which is another hormone of our female reproductive system. It leaves estrogen unchallenged. So when progesterone goes down, estrogen is now unchallenged. And estrogen gets a bad rap because it is the mother lode of hormones. We love estrogen. Thank you, estrogen, for everything that you've done. Forgive us, estrogen, for taking you for granted all these years now that you've gone bye-bye. But one of the things that estrogen gets a bad rap about is our estrogen dominance, or what's called our estrogen, I've lost the word for it, but cancers that can be caused from, imbalances in estrogen. And so everybody's got this huge question, what's going on and what's going on? Well, when your cortisol level goes really high, your progesterone goes down. And when progesterone leaves estrogen unchecked, it creates this imbalance. So you can have things like, one of the things that I had was nodules on my thyroid, because that's it produces this excess cellular production. Of course, we can talk about different cancers that can be, estrogen-driven cancers, but it's not because estrogen is bad. It's because estrogen is left unchecked in the body because progesterone goes bye-bye with cortisol, our stress goes high. So I didn't know this. I just knew that my mom was dying. I did end-of-life care with my mom. I moved in with her the last 3 months of life. And then we ended up having to transition her into a hospice center, and then she passed away. But nobody was telling me, Steph, you're 50 years old. This is when mom got really sick. You're 50 years old. You need to take it easy. You're in your perimenopause stage of life. And if you don't take it easy, this is going to come back and bite you in the butt. And I want to share my story because, damn it, I was healthy. I'm a freaking health coach. I know, quote unquote, you can't see me on the podcast, but I know what to do to take care of my body. I know what to eat to take care of my body. I know what supplements to take. I know how much sleep to have, blah, blah, blah. None of it meant shit when I pushed my body to the edge with stress and my cortisol levels went through the roof. And that's when all hell broke loose. I started having hot flashes, the anxiety set in, the brain fog set in, the pain in my body. I couldn't believe how much pain was in a body that hadn't been injured. It would shock me that I would get up. I had plantar fasciitis so bad that my husband literally went to the medical supply store and bought me a scooter so that I could get around the house. Are you effing kidding me? I needed a scooter to get around my house because the bottoms of my feet hurt so bad that I couldn't move. My hips and shoulders hurt so bad it was difficulty walking. I was 51 years old. I should not be feeling like this. And I could not figure out what was going on. The brain fog, the anxiety, the apathy, the sleep disturbances. Oh my God, they were horrible. I was taking stuff to sleep. I was taking sleep aids. I was taking Tylenol PM. I was taking melatonin. I was taking all of the sleep aids. Could not sleep more than 15 to 20 minutes at any given time. I would wake up 3 to 5 times an hour in the middle of the night. All of this was triggered. Yes, perimenopause doesn't have to look like this. But what I did not know is that the stress that I had undergone taking care of my mother during end-of-life care had absolutely taken a hit to my body. Because what happens is as we go through perimenopause and we enter into menopause, The adrenal glands are the glands that take over the production of estrogen and progesterone. When we're first part of our lives, we have our ovaries, and our ovaries are responsible for helping our bodies produce estrogen and progesterone. And as we go through perimenopause and menopause, our ovaries kind of hand over the job to making these valuable hormones to our adrenal glands. Well, thank you, adrenals, for taking care of us. But if you have tapped your adrenal glands and exhausted them with stress, this is where the road gets really, really dicey. And this is the message that I want women to hear right now, is that this is the time in your life when you really should start taking care of your body, managing stress. And I know we say this all the time, manage your stress better. I mean, if clients want to vomit when I say this to them, manage your stress better. And they're like, are you effing kidding me? Do you have any idea what I do? I work a full-time job. I have 3 kids. My husband travels for a living. My mom is sick with this. I'm responsible for that. I'm on this committee and I have to do that. The list just goes on and on and on. We are caregivers to the nth degree, not just with our own children, but with our communities, with our coworkers, with everybody around us. It's how we're hardwired. It's how we're programmed. But what we do is that we absolutely tap ourselves out. And that's exactly what I did. And so I want to tell everybody, as you're moving into these years, there are a lot of things that you can do to support the transition. And one of the number one, we can talk about your food. Yes, quit eating crap and start eating the good stuff. We can talk about exercise. Yes, move your body, go for a walk, do something to move your body. But, we've been preaching that over and over again. So those are absolutely important and they rank very high up there. But the big thing that sideswipes women, and the reason that so many of us are struggling, especially in this society where there's this high demand for high functioning, high productivity, is because we stress our adrenals out. We tap them out. And then the adrenals are like, dude, I'm just saving your life here. I don't have the time to make estrogen or progesterone or anything else that you want me to do that's extra. And this is where the tumble starts to fall. This is where it gets really difficult for us, because once you get to that point, then all sorts of other shit shows up, right? And then we go to our doctor because we have thyroid issues and so many things. Courtney, yes, ma'am, weigh in.
So I'm hearing you say that, and in our current culture and the American lifestyle, it is still go, go, go. So what is the solution to take care of your adrenals for women and men? They are stressed just like we are. How do you incorporate the balancing of the adrenals? How do you incorporate leading a less stressed life? How does that happen when life is just coming? What do you say?
Yeah. And that's such a great question. And I think I don't have a specific answer for you. I can tell you that yoga is amazing. I can tell you that walks in nature are absolutely amazing. I can tell you that breathing exercises will literally change your life. And I'm not kidding. The science behind breathing exercises is mind-blowing. I can tell you to have a mindfulness practice. I can tell you to reach out and create community. The oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, the oxytocin that is released when we are in a community where we feel supported and where we feel loved, is absolutely amazing. And oxytocin helps the body balance estrogen and progesterone. So it's a really, really important hormone. There's lots of hormones involved in this. But I could literally laundry list, as well as you could, Courtney, the millions of things that we could do. But my biggest suggestion is that you have to have a change in your mindset. You have to say, it's time that I step back and I make myself a priority, and I start saying no to things that are not going to serve my health and my well-being. And I start saying yes to things that are all about me and only about me, which is a very difficult mind shift to have.
Yeah, that is. I agree with the mindset shift. About a month ago, I had this mantra that I was repeating to myself in the car as I drove home from work the whole time. I have a 30-minute commute. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Why is my schedule so tight? What? And I was just over and over and over again. And it took me down the rabbit hole. And I didn't have enough time. My schedule was always tight. And it took like reframing. I met with my therapist and I was just telling her this. And she said, get your brain or get yourself out of your brain and be more heart-centered and have a shift in your mindset. And she sat with me and worked with me about it. And it changed. Like we worked on time and perception of time, but it's the mindset shift is crucial. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I'm not going to repeat that mantra again anymore because what you focus on becomes your reality. And I know this, but I was so stressed out that all I could do was have that mantra. And I've banned it from my life and I'm thinking more positively. And it has helped. I have to say it has helped so much.
Yeah, because what happens is it creates momentum, right? In whatever direction you're going. So with your mantra, I have no time, I have no time. Wow, we get the momentum going in that direction. Or, I can make time, I can make time, I can make time. We get the momentum going in that direction. But I literally could laundry list so many beautiful things that we can do. And Courtney, I know you can too. You live on the island and you go for these wonderful hikes and you create this community that you have with your women that you do once a week and you swim with the sea turtles. Oh my God, how calming is that? Let's all swim with the sea turtles. So it's not for lack. I think everybody knows that there are things out there, right? That calm us, that center us, that help. By the way, sleep. Take a nap. For the love of God, take a nap if you can. Close your office door, tilt your head back, and close your eyes for 10 minutes. Block out the stimuli. Allow yourself to reset. I am so tired of hearing people say that they eat through their lunch hour. What is wrong with us? Why are we eating through our lunch hour? Years ago, a lunch hour was a lunch hour. That was 60 full minutes. Now we're like, no, I don't have time. I can't do that. Yet, yes, you can. There has to be a change in mindset so that we can start this revolution that says, I'm no longer going to stand for this. My well-being is important because, by the way, if we don't take care of ourselves, men and women both, then that's terrible. Productivity goes down. I can't show up for work. I can't show up and be a mother. I can't show up and be a friend. The list goes on and on and on. And we add to the burden of our nation because the amount of money that we're spending in healthcare for stress-related, lifestyle-related issues is huge. It's in the billions. And so we have to just take back our power and say, no, this is really important. I don't want to have the same disease states that I see so many elderly people have. And I'm going to take back my power and I'm going to give myself, a lunch hour. And it might start with 15 minutes, but it's better than what you're doing now. What are some of your favorite practices for centering yourself and bringing peace to your world, Courtney?
That's a good question. I like to stop what I'm doing if I can remember. If the key is remembering to do it. Sometimes I can get very whipped up. Taking a deep breath and engaging my vagus nerve, taking several deep breaths, walking away, getting into a different environment, taking a break from a conversation if it's not, I don't want to say not going well, but if I'm getting cloudy in my thinking or not feeling stable in the conversation, I like to exit and take a small break and then return when I am more focused and more able to handle the conversation. And that might be 10 minutes later. It might be next week. Just realizing that I can set boundaries and not every single thing needs to happen right now. And I think in this world of let's get this done right now, we need to realize what really needs to be done right now, taking care of yourself. Number one, that needs to be done right now. So if you need to take a break from anything, I think, or I believe that you are well within your rights to do so. And I am a self-worth coach for women, and I want women to believe, because that they are worthy of taking that break, that they are worthy of taking that breath, that they are worthy of stepping away and regrounding and recentering and getting back into sync with their own rhythm and their own truth so they can keep on going. First and foremost, self-worth, because we are worthy where we are, how we are, as we are, period.
You know what? I think that actually is the precursor to this mindset change that we're talking about, is that I have to have enough self-worth to change my mind about how I go through my day. And unfortunately, we live in this, get it done, fast-paced, productivity is king, society. And we actually become less and less productive the more productive we are. And what I mean by that is that if we don't allow ourselves break, then our bodies start to deteriorate. There's this thing called the 20-minute break. I can't think of the author, but he talks about what's called the ultradian rhythm break. And I know we talked about this, Courtney, in some of our classes, but ultradian rhythm break but basically what it says is that the brain itself works on a 90-minute loop, and it can be really productive for about 90 minutes, but then it has to have a break. And then that break can be, just walking away. That break can be taking a deep breath. That break can be walking down the hallway to the vending machine to get yourself some nourishment. But it could be laying your head back, in your office, closing your eyes for just a minute, taking a few breaths. And then when you come back in, then you're productive again. But it's a 90-minute cycle. How many of you guys take a break every 90 minutes to give your brain and your body that reset? What they learned about this ultradian rhythm break is that it doesn't just stabilize your brain activity, it actually stabilizes your blood glucose. It helps stabilize your blood pressure. It helps balance your hormones because cortisol goes down and resets itself, and then all the others come back up. It actually increases the length of your telomeres in your brain. You literally get smarter every time you take a break.
And you live longer. The longer your telomeres are, the longer your lifespan tends to be. And we had a speaker in our integrative nutrition course called Pilar Gerasimo, and she spoke about the ultradian rhythms. That was the first time I learned about it, and I have her book, and I found it fascinating. I loved it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's easy to find online.
Yeah. And so that's part of it, right? It's just making ourselves saying no to others. And it's not saying no forever. That's the one thing that I want to say to women. You guys, I'm from a big family, and I'm doing self-care. I did I did end-of-life care with my mother. And unfortunately, several other people passed away. And of course, the whole craziness that went around that. But when I got back from, my mom passed away, I was back in my home. I was no longer living with her. I just acted like it was business as usual. I just was like, okay, I've got a son that's a junior in high school. Then we're going to do prom. I was on the parent prom committee. And so by George, the day my mom passed away was prom. I'm wanting to share my story so people get this. My mom passed away. The day my mom passed away, she passed away in the middle. It was night. I want to say like 10 p.m., midnight when I got the call. Maybe it was 1 a.m. when I got the call. But it was Saturday morning now, and it was prom. It was prom. I had just seen mom, but I had left and allowed my other siblings and other people to go in because I had been staying with her. And it was prom, and I was on the parent prom committee. That meant organizing all the food and organizing some of the activities, working with the students. Absolutely a wonderful experience. But I didn't tap out. Oh, hell no. I wasn't going to let any of those people down. I showed up at prom. worked the entire night. And I kept telling everybody, it's good, it's better for me. You know, my mind won't be on it. But looking back, Courtney, what the fuck? My mom died a few hours earlier, and I worked the post-prom, which literally starts at 10 p.m. and goes all the way till 5 a.m. It's an event that the kids love, but I just was so sure that I couldn't let those people down. Now, looking back, it's been 5 years since Mom passed. Looking back, every one of those people would have given me a pass. Every one of those other adults would have stepped up and said, Steph, you don't need to be here. And they did. That knew, but I wasn't going to tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to feel bad for me. I mean, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with us in this go, produce? Courtney, tell me, what was I thinking?
Nothing is wrong with you. We all handle grief in different ways.
Yes.
And that is how you handled it. There's absolutely nothing wrong. And you can look back and say, oh, I could have, would have, should have. But that is how you handled it. You got through it. You're alive and kicking, you know?
Yeah.
So regardless, you know, who knows what would have happened had you stayed home and been sad. You were able to do something else and grieve in other ways that were perhaps more beneficial than staying home. You know, we'll never know the answer to that, but definitely don't beat yourself up about that. I'm sure that happens a lot. I'm sure you're not alone in that at all.
Yeah. And friends, that is why we have health coaches, because from one health coach to another, I'm sitting here berating myself, and my dear friend, who is also a health coach, says, Steph, you did what was best for you in the moment. That probably is so key to this transition of perimenopause and menopause, is having community that supports you, because it's not just about raising those oxytocin levels, which is great, but feeling heard and connected is a huge part of what's going to get us through, you know, these years. So thank you, Courtney, for reminding me. You know, we all go down these rabbit holes, right?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say, though, was that it wasn't just prom. After taking care, I just kept going. I kept going with my life. I just kept going. I powered through. We had a trip planned to go see my daughter over in Europe that we did. We had a trip planned. We had all these things that were on the calendar, and I just kept going and going and going and going. And I didn't stop. I didn't stop and do self-care. And I hit a wall that was really, really bad, and I ended up pretty much disabled. But I don't want anybody to do what I did. I want everybody to raise their hand and say, I'm going to give myself permission to take care of myself. And if that means just stopping and having a small little lunch break, maybe you start out with 15 minutes where you put the phone away. By the way, that one is a huge distraction that needs to be set aside. You put the phone away, you put the computer away for 15 minutes, and you just be with yourself. Maybe you just be with your sandwich. You be with your sandwich and your iced tea, and you just be present in the moment. You know, that would be considered an ultradian rhythm break, right? Yeah, there's just so many little things that we could do. I encourage everybody, when you start your day, you were asking me what we can do to kind of balance this cortisol takeover that occurs with our rush, crazy lives. Don't start your day out on your phone. Your first 5 minutes of your day, go do something else. Not forever. I mean, I use my phone for everything. It's how I know my appointments. It's how I check my emails. It's how I do everything. But don't start your day on your phone. Start your day doing something else. Get up, go to the bathroom if you need to, come back in, sit on the edge of your bed, take a few deep breaths. Maybe you walk into the kitchen, start your coffee pot if you need to do that, take a glass of water. But there's something very valuable about those first 5 to 8 minutes upon rising that sets the tone for your day. And if you set the tone for your day, looking at social media or looking at an email that's probably not very fun, responding to a business text because you've got shit to do, it sets your tone in a different way. So that's a really small thing that you could do that probably incorporate is, do not start your day out on your phone. Give yourself 5 to 8 minutes where you're doing something else just for yourself.
Agreed. And you are worthy of that time for yourself. When you're waking up, you're right in that liminal space. And that liminal space is a very powerful place to be. That's kind of where your subconscious is closer to you than usual. So that's a great time to set intentions for your day. Think about what you're grateful for, and relax and be. And then you begin to wake up, but you've already begun to set your mindset. As long as you're thinking positive intentions, not thinking like I don't have any time today. No, switch that around. And that is a very magical time. And I believe that time happens right before you sleep as well. But I know for me, that liminal space in the morning is more accessible than the liminal space at night for me. So that is when I like to listen to the world around me and set some intentions.
Yeah.
And that's hopefully will help me as I skip right on along with perimenopause.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about, I love this, Dr. Mindy Pels. She's one of my favorites. I've been following her for a long time, but she talks about how the brain during perimenopause and then of course menopause, postmenopause actually rewires itself. The brain actually rewires itself and it starts to rely more on ketones than on sugar. And I thought this was really interesting because if our brain literally reorganizes itself for this time in our lives, and she talks about how we become more active members in community because we no longer are caregiving, we no longer are of childbearing age, and we get to this point where we are no longer using energies for menstrual cycles. Because that's an energy, right? Our body uses energy for a menstrual cycle. Our body uses energy, to have babies, and the list goes on and on. When our reproductive organs start to reorganize themselves, then we become creative in a different way. It actually frees up creative energies. And so I want to kind of reframe how we think of perimenopause and menopause. It's not a deterioration of what our bodies, it's actually a rebirth of our creative energies and of our focus. And they're now actually scientifically proving that the perimenopause and the menopause brain actually reorganizes itself. So it no longer has to rely on sugars for energy. It can rely more on ketones. Ketones can be produced when you're in a fasting state. Your body can actually manufacture ketones. And what it does is it allows us to take on this leadership position in communities. We think about some of the stories we've heard about, the wise woman of the tribe, that was the medicine woman and everybody went to her because she was a community leader. So this time in our lives is not a time where everything's fallen apart. This time in our lives is a time of rebirth and refocus and opening up creative energies for so many new ventures in our life.
Exactly. And for that reason, I am really looking forward to menopause because I know that, from what I've read and what you're talking about right now, that our brain is going to reform. It's our time to reevaluate. It's a good time to make changes in your life, whether it's a career change or you want to take up a new hobby or artistic endeavor, anything like that. It's a time to find your purpose. And instead of rearing children, you are now focusing on you and your desires. And I think there's also you have time to look out for your community and create community as well, especially if that's something that's important to you. Some people may have the experience of rather being alone and being very introspective during this time. And that's a beautiful gift as well. So I think this is a time to deepen your spirituality. It's been proven so far that our intuition actually becomes more heightened during this time. And I think that's a beautiful gift when we give our hearts that opportunity to speak to us, or when we give our own selves the opportunity to let our hearts speak to us when we listen. So that is a time where your intuitive things will come to you intuitively. You may not know what it is or why it is or where it's coming from, but you have a deep sense of knowing. And I think when we women really tune into that, we are going to be more powerful as friends. We are going to be more powerful as healers. Not that we have the power to heal anybody, but we have the power to hold space for somebody so their body can do its own healing. Whether that is through talking about nutrition, whether that is visiting a massage therapist. Reiki comes up a lot in the readings that I'm doing for women going through or who are in menopause to help to connect to their intuitive feelings, to move energy through and to welcome new energy and to balance the chakras. And they even recommended taking a like Reiki 1 training because it's all about self-love and self-healing. And I'm a Reiki 2 practitioner. I love being able to be a helper to help somebody heal. And it's one of the things. I had Reiki many years ago and it clicked in my mind. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to help people, or one of the ways I want to help people. So I do believe that this is a time of great growth and great introspection, and it holds a lot of power. What do you think,
love
Stephanie?
Well, I love that because I think we do spend a lot of time caregiving, and everything is external, right? All of our energy, time, attention, and focus is external, taking care of other people's wants, other people's needs, whether that's children, whether that's work, whether that's community. All of those are beautiful things, and nobody wants to take those away, but it's allowing that energy to swing back inward and focus on self in the most beautiful way. Because when a woman's cup runneth over, when she fills up her cup, with all of that self-focus and self-love that you were talking about and self-worth, when her cup fills up and it runneth over to everybody that's in her circle. I mean, it's not a selfish thing. I think we tend to think of self-care as being selfish. And it's one of the things that I want to reframe is that this inward focus is probably the most benevolent thing that you can do for your family, for your community, for the planet at large, is to connect inwardly so that you have the resources to then express outwardly in a beautiful way, not out of obligation, but out of inspiration. And I think that's really big. And I don't think we give too many people the opportunity to move from a place of inspiration. There's so much that has to be done, so we don't have a lot of time to move from that place of inspiration. So I love that you talked about Reiki as being a self-worth thing. I was reading in the literature in Dr. Mary Claire's book, she was saying that some of the things that have actually been shown to help with menopausal symptoms, like hot flashes, are not just your herbs and not just your diet. All of that is incredible. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But they actually talked about yoga, meditation, and cognitive behavior therapy, where you're literally reprogramming your brain, because we need to reprogram, allow ourselves to be okay with ourselves. Every woman that sits most of my clients are women. I've had a few men through the years, but most of them are women. But every woman that sits in my office, they usually have an enormous amount of shame because of the weight that they've gained. It's always about weight, right? There's this huge thing about weight because of the illnesses that they have. And they feel like they've somehow not just let themselves down, but they've let others down as well. And so it's circling back to that self-love, self-care aspect that really plays a huge role in what we do. And it's not selfish. Like I said, it's probably, has anybody ever been around an inspired woman? I mean, have you ever been around a woman that's just full of purpose and full of inspiration? You just want to hitch your wagon to that, don't you? They're like, oh my God, I want that. And we can all have that. We just have to give ourselves permission to have that. So I love that you're talking about that. One of the things that I want to talk about is I'm really nerdy about the science, about how our bodies work. And if you are, the books that I talked about are going to be fantastic. But I wanted to just go over some basic things that it didn't matter what book I was reading. There were just some basic things. And Courtney, I know you're going to relate to this, but there's some basic things that we can do to take care of ourselves. And it's things that we probably don't know. We talk about eating a good diet, but what does that actually mean? So I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about some key things that were brought up that help women during perimenopause and menopause. And we're going to start with what you talked about, Courtney, at the beginning. Is Dr. Mindy Pelz has done an amazing job talking about intermittent fasting. And I encourage people to pick up a book. Dr. Mary Claire says the same thing about intermittent fasting. Our bodies no longer need as much glucose, as much sugars to survive. We actually move more towards ketones. And what happens when you fast is that your body actually can produce those ketones and create that energy source for your body. So intermittent fasting is something that I encourage people to look into because it's fantastic for the perimenopause and menopausal woman. Like the research behind how effective intermittent fasting is. And so what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is where you allow the digestive tract to rest. So you have more time with your digestive tract resting, aka you're not eating, than you do for when you're actually eating. And so intermittent fasting can look something like if you're doing intermittent fasting could be like, I'm done eating at 7 p.m. tonight, and I'm not going to eat again for 12 hours. I'm not going to eat again or drink a sugary drink. You can have as much water as you want, but until 7 a.m. again tomorrow. So that's like 12 hours. That would be 12 hours of eating and 12 hours of not eating. When you move into intermittent fasting, it's where you extend that non-eating window a little further. So you might say, I just finished eating tonight at 7 p.m. and I'm not going to eat or drink anything that's going to raise my blood sugar until tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then you're going 14 hours without eating instead of just the 12 hours. And then you go to, 10 hours that you have what's called an eating window. There's all sorts of research about it in the books. There's a huge misconception about it, and it can be done comfortably and easily, but I encourage you to do your research, grab the books, because you want to slowly move into this. This is not something you're going to do overnight. A lot of people think, I'm just going to skip breakfast and lunch tomorrow and I'm going to be great. No, you're probably going to crash really hard. You're probably going to be irritable. It's probably going to cause a nosedive in your hormones. You're going to get a headache and you're going to be like, I'm never listening to that podcast again. So I want to encourage you, when you look at intermittent fasting, to make sure that you read up on, do your research and find the simple ways to get into that. Courtney, have you experienced with intermittent fasting yourself? I was wondering if you had any personal experience with it.
Yes. I read Dr. Mindy Pelz's book, Fast Like a Girl, and I love it. It makes so much sense. And I like the sciencey part about it too. And there's so much in that book about hormones. And I just ate that up. In fact, due to perimenopause, my memory doesn't retain everything as well as I wish at this point. So I would like to read it again, as well as the Menopause Reset book that you mentioned. And I do believe she has another book coming out next year about menopause.
She does.
But yeah, I have done intermittent fasting. And in fact, I followed her protocol for a while, and I'm inspired to start again. And I felt great. Like all the bloating that I would experience throughout the month, it just disappeared with the intermittent fasting. And I believe that is because my whole digestive system had got a break.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It can do what it needs to do. And it was hard. Like if I felt hungry, that's really hard because I'm very motivated by hunger, just like my cat, and motivated by food. And that is hard. To not eat when you're feeling hungry. But I just kept my eyes on the prize. And yeah, there were some days where I did eat because my body needed it. I could feel it in my bones, and I was just weary. and I needed the calories. And so I would try to stay as strict as possible. And I would also be forgiving to myself, when I needed to break the fast for whatever reason. But I do like how she sets it up, and how she sets it up for women who are still cycling, with the different lengths of fasts and which foods to incorporate into your diet to help with your hormone balance. And I found that easy to understand. I felt like it made a lot of sense, and I personally felt better.
Yeah. And I love that, because same thing, when I read her book, she talked about progesterone needs more carbohydrates to produce in your body, and estrogen needs more fats to produce in your body. And so she talked about that. So when you're looking at your cycle, there's times where you do not forego the carbs. You definitely want to have the carbs, and we want to have the healthy carbs. We talked about that before. There's your highly processed, highly toxic carbs, and then there's your fruits and your starchy vegetables and all that type of stuff. And then she talked about times where, what I thought was interesting when I did it was that I could tell that I was hungry for carbs when my progesterone was low. And so I would try to have things that were, heavier in carbs. And then I would ask myself, what cycle am I in? And then I might eat an avocado because it's higher in fiber and higher in fat. And so I encourage people, if you're going to do it, look into it. Don't just try to do it, because I don't want you to do it incorrectly. And not that there's a wrong way to do it, but like Courtney said, you can feel hungry. But if you very slowly move into it over several weeks, this isn't something you're going to do over a week. Over several weeks, you slowly adjust to it. It can make a difference. But intermittent fasting is something that is super, super great for the perimenopause and menopausal woman. There is so much great research out there about the timing of it. So I encourage you to look into that. One of the other things is that we need to do things that are going to improve our gut microbiome. Our gut health plays a pivotal, if not the main role in how our bodies metabolize hormones and how our bodies function as a whole. And so anything that we can do to support gut health, eating a probiotic rich diet, can be very, very beneficial in supporting that gut health. So that's going to be your fermented foods like your sour pickles, your sauerkraut, your miso, your tofu, kefir, your yogurt, kimchi, kombucha, all those types of foods are going to support, the good, healthy gut microbiome. The other thing that feeds the good microbiome is fiber. We should be getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, ladies, and we're not getting even a fraction of that. So 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. Pick up your packages, Google it on your, look it up on your phone. How much fiber does an apple have? Look it up and try to get 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. And if you don't think you can consume that in your regular food, then look at a fiber substitute. I drink a fiber drink every day. I mix it with my greens powder and I mix it with my fiber powder. I mix it up together. I drink it down every day because I know I'm probably not getting as much as I need. So you're definitely going to want to increase your fiber. You're going to want to look at your probiotic rich foods. And if you can't get it through that, then I'm going to encourage you to look into a really good probiotic. Those are going to help as well. I'm also going to encourage you to eat more protein. Big misconception that men are the only ones that are supposed to have protein. In all of the books that I've read, whether it was about the brain health or the hormone health or whatever it was, women aren't getting enough protein. You really need to increase your protein intake, your clean, healthy proteins. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you're going to want to look at the protein intake of things like your tofu, your lentils, and things like that. But you really want to pay attention. And when I say protein, we're talking, it can be anywhere between 55 to 75 to 85 grams of protein a day, depending on your size, your age, your activity level. So I don't just mean a little bit of protein. I mean, we're way up there, close to, between 75 and 100 for most women. So that's something that we can do to help us, because our bodies need different types of foods. And a lot of times we're starting our morning out with a sugary breakfast, because we might have a bagel, with a glass of orange juice. That's going to be sugar. That's not going to feed your gut microbiome. That's not going to support the protein that your brain needs. And then at lunch, we might have a slice of pizza and, a pop, again, that's going to be too much, of our sugars. So you definitely want to start looking at what you can do to incorporate changing your diet. The other thing that's super, super, super important is moving our bodies. You guys, it's been proven over and over again that moving our bodies makes a difference. So if you can try to find a way to increase some aerobic activity and to do some weight resistant training, that can be using your own body. Find something fun that you do not have an aversion to. If the thought of exercising and doing aerobics makes you want to vomit, then go for a walk at night. Maybe find a 10-minute routine on YouTube where you can do some weight resistant things. Maybe you do yoga. My daughter just introduced me to a class called Choreo Fusion, and it's just dancing. And it is so flippin' fun. I feel like I'm in show choir. I literally am like, my legs are kicking in the air and I'm counting my steps and I'm doing the cha-cha and I'm doing the Charleston and I'm doing the salsa. Find something that you like to do, but moving your bodies makes a huge difference. For that, go ahead, Courtney. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and if you can move your body with a friend or two, that is nice too. Like go for a walk after lunch or after dinner or, right as the sun is coming up. Every week I lead a women's hiking group here on the island. And I have been thanked for, I wasn't the creator of this group, but I do a lot of the planning for it. And I have been thanked for creating this or keeping this community together and creating time and space for women to come together and get exercise, to get community, and also to just be one with nature as we're out there. And it's a beautiful thing. And I have to say that I'm bringing this up because one of the hikers this weekend said, we were talking about menopause, and she said, I'm so glad that we're talking about this because we need to start talking about this as women, as a group. We need to be having this conversation because we're all going through it. And it was so nice. And I feel like more and more people are talking about the changes. So there is a shift happening. So I'm glad we're talking about that. And I feel like it's catching on. If my hiking group is talking about it, it's catching on because we're way out here in the Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just looked at the time. It's time to wrap up. But gosh, the time goes by so quickly. But I agree with you. I think the biggest thing is that we need to have the conversation and that we need to pull it out of the shadows. You guys, I'm a postmenopausal woman. If you would have asked me when I was 35 if I wanted to be postmenopausal, I would have been like, hell no. That there's just it's not just a scary time where you think your body's declining. And I want you to know your body is not declining. It is freeing up energies to do so many big things. But we live in a society that does not support that transition. We live in a society that does not support it through our food industry, our medical industry. If I go into the doctor and I start complaining about I'm going to kill my husband today, they're going to prescribe me some psychiatric care, right? I just need somebody to look at me and go, me too. You must be in perimenopause, just to be able to open up that conversation. So we do not live in a society that supports it. There's a lot of embarrassment around it. There's a lot of derogatory terms around, the postmenopausal woman, the perimenopausal woman. And we tend to glorify this whole, my child making years. And you know what? No, this is going to be a really great time. And so we need to have the conversation. Grab the books that I recommended. Do your own research. Raise your hand. I was sitting at a table with dinner. This was last summer, and there were 8 of us at dinner. And the woman across from me started sweating profusely, and she started doing this. And, she was fanning herself and and I knew she was having a hot flash because I have them all the time. I knew exactly what it was, and I wanted to reach out and say, hey, having a hot flash, do you want to borrow my little fan? I keep it in my purse. But I was so afraid to embarrass her, to call attention to it, because you could tell that she didn't want anybody to know that's what was going on. Well, I'm sitting across from her having one myself. So I'm like, girl, I know exactly what you're going through. But I want us to be okay having these conversations because the more we talk about it, the more we bring it into the light, and then the more it gets moved into the category of importance in our food culture, in our medical culture. That's another thing. Did you know that less than 1% of all the dollars spent on medical research is for this time in a woman's life? Less than 1% of all
shocking statistic.
The medical research dollars goes towards studying perimenopause and menopause this time in a woman's life. No wonder. Yeah. Your doctor gets anywhere from 1 to 2 hours of menopause, perimenopause training in an 8-year education. It's just not in the forefront. So we as women need to bring it into the forefront. And I'm so glad we had this conversation tonight. And I'm sure that we'll have more conversations, but do your research, reach out to your friends, because trust me, if you've got friends that they're all having symptoms, it just doesn't look like it. If you're not having a hot flash, you think you're not going through menopause. Well, if you've got frozen shoulder or weight gain or brain fog or anxiety, go back to that list that I read at the beginning of the podcast. There's so much going on there, and there's ways that you can combat that. Get your books, do your research, and reach out and connect with each other. Courtney, what else do we want to say before we wrap up?
I want to say that this just isn't a conversation amongst women. We need to be talking to others about it so they are aware.
I absolutely love that. I've been married 30 years, and I had said to my husband the other day, I said, I forgot what it was. And I was saying to somebody on the phone, blah, 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 menopause, blah, 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 hot flashes, sleep disturbances. I don't know what it was. And I guess it sounded like I was putting myself down. And I said, no, I'm no longer hiding the fact that I'm going through this, because I want somebody else to know that they're going through it too. But you know what? I don't share a lot with my husband. I mean, I'm a health coach. I don't sit down and say, babe, this is what's going on. This is why it's different in the bedroom. You know what I mean? Like, that's a cringy conversation to have, right? Nobody wants to have that conversation. But I think when you have that conversation, it allows you to be vulnerable. And when you do that, you create a connection. And again, that's that whole cycle of support and love. So I agree with you, Courtney.
Yeah. And also, children who are of an age to understand that, like, mom is going through this, auntie's going through this, this is why. And that way, our younger generation isn't shocked, and they have more, a greater understanding of, when they eventually get there, or if one of their friends is going through it before they are, or their spouse, family member. I think if the conversation needs to be more broad than just among women.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, because like you said, then the surprise that occurs when you don't know what's going on because you haven't had those conversations. And you guys, perimenopause can start as early as age 35. Don't be scared about that. Embrace that and be like, wow, now that I know, that I'm going through this. By the way, there's no specific test that you can do for perimenopause. It was through all the research that I did. You can go get your hormones checked, but your perimenopause journey, which is 7 to 10 years before your last cycle, fluctuates so much with your hormones that if you were to check your hormones today, you would get a different reading tomorrow and a different reading next week. And so there's not a specific medical test that you can do for perimenopause. Perimenopause is going to be based on symptoms. And in the books that I've recommended, and if you go to their websites, each one of these particular authors have a symptoms list to help people understand, okay, I am in perimenopause. And because I'm in perimenopause and I'm having these fluctuations, these are the things that I really need to look to, to make sure that I have a healthy transition into menopause. That was the other thing we talked about, stress reduction, make sure that that's, something that's on your list. But I agree with you, Courtney. I think the more we have these conversations, not just with women of our age, but throughout our entire community, we take the stigma away from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, completely. Well, everybody, you've talked longer than we should have, but I tend to ramble on when I get excited. So thank you so much for joining us at the Holistic Health Front podcast. We are super excited that you're here. If you would like to know more about this journey we will definitely put the names of the books and the authors in our information below the podcast. And do your own information and reach out to us. If you'd like to learn more about particular phases of this or anything else, let us know. So thanks for joining us tonight. And until next time, have a blessed day.